In the quiet serenity of a mountain monastery, the winds whipped through the trees, the stone walls stood firm and silent, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves in soft, golden beams. There, in a peaceful calm of the temple courtyard, a monk and his student sat in contemplation. The student, eager but restless, had been studying under the monk's tutelage for many months, learning the ways of meditation, patience, and inner stillness. Yet, in his heart, a storm of questions churned, and he found himself unable to grasp the deeper truths his master spoke of. On that particular afternoon, the monk asked the student to stand and prepare for a lesson. "Today," the monk said, his voice calm but firm, "we will test your stillness. You must remain grounded no matter the challenge." The student nodded, his brow furrowing in both anticipation and doubt. He had learned much from the monk: how to sit in silence, how to watch his thoughts without attachment. But still he struggled with the sensations of discomfort that arose during his practice. His body was young and strong, yet his mind was often troubled by the smallest distraction. He had not yet fully learned to control his reaction to the world. "Stand in front of me," the monk instructed. The student stood tall, breathing deeply, trying to settle his thoughts. Without warning, the monk raised his hand and swung it towards the student's face in a swift motion. It was as if the monk was about to strike, but just before contact, he stopped, his hand hovering inches from the student's skin. The student flinched, his whole body tensing as he instinctively took a step back. "Why did you move?" the monk asked. His voice was soft but steady, his eyes searching. The student, his breath shallow and fast, took a moment to regain his composure. His heart beat loudly in his chest as if he slowly exhaled, tried to find his voice. "Master, I thought you were going to strike me," he said, his voice betraying both confusion and a touch of fear. The monk nodded, lowering his hand. "Yes, you thought I was going to strike you. And because you thought this, you reacted. You flinched. You stepped away. But you did not wait to see whether the strike would actually come. You reacted as though it were already a reality." The student stood silent, unsure of how to respond. The moment had passed, but the questions in his mind only seemed to multiply. "You believe the strike would have caused you harm, don't you?" the monk continued, his voice full of understanding, yet unwavering. "That it would have caused you physical pain, injury, and discomfort?" The student nodded. "Yes, master, of course, I would have been hurt." The monk stepped back and observed him with a steady gaze. "But tell me," he said after a pause, "what kind of pain would have been worse for you? Pain of the body or pain of the mind and heart?" The student hesitated. He had always understood pain as something physical, something that could be healed or avoided. But the monk's question made him think of a deeper pain, one that was less visible, but perhaps just as dangerous. "Master," the student asked, his voice trembling slightly, "what do you mean by that?" The monk gestured for the student to sit, and they both settled onto the cool stone floor of the courtyard. "Let me explain," the monk said. "You feared that I might strike you because you imagined the physical pain it would cause. But in doing so, you forgot something important. Pain, both physical and emotional, is connected. When you experience physical injury, the body suffers, but the mind also reacts to that suffering. Your thoughts become clouded with the pain. Your emotions become entangled with fear, frustration, or anger." The student's brow furrowed. "But what does that have to do with emotions?" The monk smiled gently. "When you face emotional pain, whether it be sadness, anger, or fear, it is no different. The pain of the heart and mind causes suffering in the same way, but we do not often see this connection. We separate the two kinds of pain, your body and your mind, as though they were independent. We think of emotional suffering as something that can be ignored or overcome, while we treat physical pain with care and attention. But in truth, both are the same. They both arise from a disturbance within, and both can cloud our perception, limiting our ability to live freely." The student listened intently, still unsure but sensing that the monk was leading him to something profound. "When you are struck," the monk continued, "when the body is injured, your movements become slower, more cautious. You are less mobile, less flexible. Your focus shifts entirely to the wound, and your mind becomes preoccupied with the pain. The same thing happens when you are emotionally injured. Your thoughts become entangled in fear, in sorrow, in regret. You become less patient with yourself, with others, less able to move freely in your life." The student nodded slowly, beginning to grasp the wisdom in the monk's words. But the monk said, "If you are aware of the cause of both physical and emotional pain, if you can observe it without attachment or reaction, then you can release the hold it has over you. Just as you would tend to a physical injury with care, you must tend to the emotional wounds in the same way, with awareness, with patience and compassion." The student sat in silence, absorbing the lesson. The monk's voice softened as he continued. "Do not fight the effect. Do not battle with your emotions when they arise, whether they are pain, anger, or fear. Instead, examine the cause. See what triggers the suffering, and remove the painful way of thinking that keeps you bound to it. If you react with anger, you will only feed your anger. If you react with fear, you will only deepen your fear. But if you remain still, if you look inward with an open heart, you will find that the cause can be transformed." The student sat with this, his mind starting to quieten. For the first time, he understood that emotional pain was not something to be feared or avoided. It was something to be understood, like a wound that needed care. "You see," the monk concluded, "true freedom lies not in escaping pain, but in transcending it. When you no longer see pain, whether of the body or the heart, as an enemy, you begin to see that all suffering is a call to awareness, and in that awareness you will find healing." The student took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the monk's words settle into his heart. In that moment, he understood that the way to peace was not in avoiding the challenges of life, but in facing them with a calm mind and a compassionate heart. With deep gratitude, he bowed to his teacher. "Thank you, Master," he said softly, his voice filled with newfound understanding. "I will strive to remember this lesson in every moment." The monk nodded with a gentle smile. "You are already learning. Let go of your need to fight the effects of pain and look deeply at the causes. In doing so, you will find that the path to peace is closer than you think." And so, the student stood again, his heart lighter, his mind clearer. The monk had not struck him, but the lesson had landed deeply, a truth that would echo throughout the rest of his life.